Welcome everybody to today's HLAA webinar, ICAAT, creating a community that brings together consumers and industry. Thank you for joining us today. My name is Amanda Watson and I am the meeting planner for HLAA and your host today. Today's presentation is being recorded and will be available for playback at a later time on the HLAA website, hearingloss.org. Today's next slide, please. Next slide. Yes, thank you. All right. I will start by giving you some tech tips. To see the captions on this webinar, you'll need to click on the CC icon and click on Show Subtitle. You can change the font size and subtitle settings. Next slide, please. That is where you can change the font size. Next slide, please. Chat is available for technical issues and panelists only. We would like participants to please use the Q&A icon to ask questions. We'll be using this to facilitate questions and answers after the presentation. Next slide, please. If you have joined by computer, the presentation should be in side-by-side mode. Slides are on the left and panelists are on the right in gallery view. You can change the size of your side-by-side view by hovering between the two screens and moving the gray bar to adjust to your desired size. If you've joined by a mobile device or phone, your view may be different and you may have to scroll between views to the desired one. Next slide. I'm pleased to welcome our panelists today. Linda Kozma-Spytek is a consultant and professional advisor to HLAA on technology. She currently co-leads the ICAAT project. Victoria Lennon is a senior communications specialist at the American Institute for Research, and she also co-leads the ICAAT project. And Lisa Hamlin is the HLAA's Director of Public Policy and the project member for the ICAAT program. I will now turn it over to our panelists.
Thanks so much, Amanda. I really appreciate the introduction. I'm really excited to be talking about this program today because it's something that has been percolating for many years and is actually coming to fruition over the last few years. So it's very exciting for me and hopefully for Lisa and Victoria as well. I'm looking forward to co-presenting with them. And I hope that once the audience hears a little bit more about this program and understands a bit about what we're trying to accomplish, that you will be excited to and interested in joining us. I want to start out actually by doing a little poll of the audience. So we have a question for those who are viewing the webinar. I understand, of course, that not everyone who might be viewing this webinar is a person with hearing loss, but you might know someone with hearing loss, or you might decide that you don't want to participate. But our question is really, among the technologies you use for communication access, this could be all kinds of technologies, right? Personal hearing devices, automatic speech recognition, really almost anything. How satisfied are you with their ease of use? And so maybe you're not satisfied at all, or maybe you're very satisfied, but we're curious about your level of satisfaction, particularly for how easy you find it to use your technologies. Okay, this is really interesting. It's interesting for a researcher because this looks like a normal distribution to me, but we're centering in on moderately satisfied with ease of use, suggesting that there's quite a bit of room to improve how easy it is to use those technologies for communication access. So thanks, Amanda, for that poll to begin with. We sort of wanted to get you thinking about communication access, thinking about technology, and to help sort of prime you, to make you ready for the presentation. And so, as I said, this is a new program that has begun. It really started approximately 2 years ago with some funding from a federal agency. We'll talk about that in a minute, but the purpose of our webinar today is to describe this program to you. We have an agenda for our webinar. We're going to spend a little bit of time talking about the background, what led us to want to develop this kind of program, what kind of funding and timeline we have for it, and who our partners are in working on it. Then really the bulk of the time we'll spend is going to be on an overview describing what the program is all about. It's a virtual program, so it will be on the web, and we'll describe the very initial stage, so phase 1 of that offering, and then we'll move on to talk with you about the next steps for that website. We're hoping to leave around 10 to 15 minutes at the end for Q&A. As I said, we're going to begin with talking about the background for why we thought it was important for the development of this program. And I should say that ICAAT stands for Industry Consumer Alliance for Accessible Technology. And so we really want to focus on bringing industry and consumers together. So I'm going to tell you a little bit of a story here about the origin of this concept. And it really began with something that I've done for approximately 6 or 7 years in a row. And that was to attend the Consumer Electronics Show. Many people know this show. It's an enormous show that happens in Las Vegas every year. And the Consumer Technology Association Foundation brings leaders from disability and accessibility communities to this show. And it really has 2 purposes. The first purpose is to build relationships. That's what we want between consumers and industry. And the second purpose is to highlight for those of us who are advocates technologies and opportunities for technology to enhance the lives of people with disabilities. And I think these purposes and goals were met, but then we all came home from the Consumer Electronics Show, and we felt like we really wanted to have more, to do more with these opportunities that we had in terms of relationship building at the show. We wanted to extend those beyond just that one meeting once a year that we had. And we also wanted to be able to have a process in place that allowed for a more effective and efficient way of following up with industry and those relationships. And we wanted that process and that program to be ongoing. This idea of building relationships was really brought home to me when I was working at Gallaudet University in the Technology Access Program. And we had the opportunity to interact with Google on its development of Live Transcribe. I think that possibly many people in the audience are familiar with this application that was developed by Google. It allows for the use of automatic speech recognition to facilitate communication in face-to-face situations, so that on your phone, if you're having a conversation, you can enable ASR, automatic speech recognition, to have that conversation. What was so great about that experience in participating in the development and launch of that project was building that relationship between consumers and industry, between Google and not just one person, not just one subject matter expert on hearing loss, but really engaging with the community at Gallaudet, the community at Hearing Loss Association of America, the community in other consumer organizations that made that experience so powerful and really demonstrated for me the benefits and the opportunities that can arise when consumers and industry come together. So we had several things that we really wanted to accomplish, concepts we had. One was obviously we want to create this industry and consumer alliance. We want something where consumers and technology developers can collaborate for mutual benefit. We also wanted to inspire and support the development of more usable, accessible, innovative product solutions. And those solutions may be related to hearing assistive technology or any other technology. We also felt it was important to foster this participatory process. It doesn't always occur, but I certainly, from that personal experience with Google, know how important it is when consumers are intrinsically involved at all stages and in all facets of the design and development process. And then finally, we wanted to provide an explicit understanding of those consumers who use technology, the kinds of tasks they're trying to accomplish, the environments they're engaging in, and to have user-centered evaluation. So we felt that these things were really key to any program that we wanted to develop. I'm going to ask Victoria if she'll talk a little bit about the funding for this project. So, you can have great ideas, but you need some resources to make those or turn those into a reality. And that's what we did. Victoria?
Thanks so much, Linda. It's so great to be here with everybody today talking about the ICAAT program, which, as Linda mentioned, this is a federally funded program that is through a grant from the National Institute on Disability, Independent Living, and Rehabilitation Research. They fund research and development grants for a variety of universities and programs. And as Linda mentioned, Gallaudet University has been really central in this through the Rehabilitation Engineering Research Center at Gallaudet. They've held several of these, and a funding opportunity came up. And when we saw the opportunity for a development project, we have been percolating all these ideas that Linda's gone through, and really thought, let's see if we can make this a reality, as it is really a first of its kind. So next slide, please. So in terms of the timeline for the ICAAT program, we really broke up our development work into 3 different phases. We started very deliberately doing a landscape analysis to inform a strategic plan. And what we did with that is we talked to a bunch of different entities, organizations, doing similar work for other disabilities. And we looked at similar style programs. Of course, nothing like ICAAT has existed before for people with hearing loss. So we had to sort of really understand the landscape for other disabilities and know what was working and where there were opportunities for improvement. So we created a strategic plan and then went about building our virtual community. Year 2, we really got to brass tacks and did a lot of the back-end development of the community of practice, the hub, if you will. And now we're in year 3, where we're getting ready to launch the community of practice as a website. and seek out members, which we hope you will join us and be part of this community, and really build out some of the offerings that Linda's going to walk through a little bit later. Then in the final phase, in phase 2, we're going to publicly sort of launch the full ICAAT website, which includes a non-member place as well as the member place, if that makes sense. And then the final year, we're going to focus on reflecting on what we learned from this program, what some of the challenges are, and really make sure that we capture that so that we have a playbook, if you will, for other opportunities like this, for other disabilities or other work that may fit this model of industry and consumers coming together in this way. So I will turn it over to my colleague, Lisa Hamlin, to talk a little bit more about the partnerships involved with ICAAT.
And I'm excited to be here too. This is Lisa Hamlin. I'm the Director of Public Policy at Hearing Loss Association of America. Now you can see on this slide, there are 3 organizations working together to build ICAAT. AIR, which is American Institutes for Research, is a nonprofit research and technical assistance organization with experts in education, health, workforce, human services, and international development. They work with leaders, organizations, and communities to create more effective programs. Gallaudet University is also one of the partners working on this. They are the home of the Deaf, Hard of Hearing Technology Rehabilitation Engineering Research Center, which funds the ICAAT program. The Technology Access Program at Gallaudet leads this research center and conducts other research related to communication technologies and services. And then there's HLAA, last but not least. Let me just tell you our mission. Our mission is to open the world of communication to people with hearing loss by providing information, education, support, and advocacy. And certainly technology is really an important piece of providing that communication that opens up the world to people with hearing loss. So could I have the next slide, please? And here are the people behind these organizations that are working hard on this project. So you've met Linda Kosma-Spitek, who is a lead investigator, as well as Victoria, the co-lead from AIR. And I'm working as a project manager for HLAA. Blythe Collier and John Spence also work at AIR and working on this project. And Kathy Medier and Tim Browning are working with HLAA, all on this project to build it and make it what we hope will be exciting to you as it is to us. Now I'm going to turn it back over to Linda to continue with an explanation of where we are and where we're going.
Thanks so much, Lisa and Victoria. I appreciate you taking and describing those things for us. And now we're going to really get to the meat of the issue, if you will, and that is an overview of what this technology program includes. So I think you might recall that Victoria mentioned the strategic planning that we did. And one of the really important things about strategic plans is that you want to develop your vision and mission statements. These things guide the work that you're doing and always help you keep the goals that you have for your project in mind. And that's what these are for. The vision statement is industry and consumers working together for mutual benefit to ensure that new and existing technologies improve the quality of life for all consumers who have hearing loss or are deaf. Our mission is, of course, related to the vision, and that is to inspire more accessible, innovative, and responsive technologies from the ground up. That's really important. that meet the needs of consumers who have hearing loss or are deaf. So that was really our very first part of our strategic plan, was to develop these things. But then, of course, the question is, how do you implement those statements, that vision and mission statement? And so that was part of the planning as well. We decided we needed to provide, obviously, a collaborative space so that consumer and industry partners could come together. Obviously, it needed to be virtual because there are many partners that are in a whole variety of places across the country, and we want them to be able to interact easily. So the first step was, we knew we wanted to develop a virtual collaborative space. So we needed something online. And we wanted that online hub to incorporate user experience and accessible design into its features and functionality. And also, for those people who become members, who join ICAAT, who want to participate in this program, we wanted to make sure that there was secure access to those planned services. Now, we're going to talk a little bit about who can participate in ICAAT. And I don't want to make this sound like we're excluding anyone. In fact, we're hoping that we'll have a very broad interest in this program, but it is called Industry and Consumer Alliance. So in terms of industry, we're really looking to engage with hearing device manufacturers, assistive technology developers, and mainstream consumer electronics companies. And so I'm not sure that there's any other category you might include here, but basically anyone in industry. So I think mostly we wanted to make sure people understood that we weren't just looking at hearing devices, not just assistive technology, but including mainstream technology and electronic companies, because as consumers, regardless of whether you have hearing loss or not, you're interacting with all those technologies, and technologies are becoming more and more a part of our everyday lives. In terms of consumers, really our consumers are individuals who have hearing loss or are deaf, but there may be other people who are interested in this program and participating with us. And they could be advocates for people who have hearing loss or are deaf, family, friends, and even someone like myself in my previous life before my consulting work. And that was as a researcher at a university. So in fact, ICAAT is open for everyone. Anyone can participate. We simply have a focus on industry and consumers coming together, but we have no interest in excluding anyone who has an interest in participating in our program. So one question that the audience may have is, well, what would I get out of participating in this program? And participating is pretty simple, and it can be almost at any level you'd like, and you'll hopefully understand that better once I describe the program a little more. But it's really, we see it as an opportunity for consumers and industry to engage with one another. Potentially actually have online, yes, virtual conversations, but conversations nevertheless, access to structured and facilitated interaction throughout a product development process. And we see this as providing insights for both industry and consumers. Industry insights are really about improving technology to meet consumer needs, and the insights for consumers is learning about new technology, about existing technology, and hopefully participating in the process of technology development. We have a number of what we're calling planned services, and Victoria described these a little bit when she talked about phase one and phase 2. Our very first phase is something that we refer to as a community of practice. I'll explain what that is in just a minute. And that's something that's actually going to be opening very soon, early 2022. And then we're going to move on to a second phase of development that includes things, as we've described here, user stories, some training, and what we're calling an industry marketplace. And I'll explain more about that in just a minute. But first, we're going to focus on the community of practice. A community of practice is something that includes virtual meetings and connections. So people are actually able to engage in dialogue between industry and consumers, consumers to consumers. So it's a way to foster and facilitate this dialogue. And it allows for different levels of participation. Not everyone is comfortable with jumping in and commenting in a conversation, but some people are. And so you can choose how active you might be in any conversation you choose to participate in. And it also helps members organize around purposeful actions. And so we have developed some groups for discussion groups to talk about particular areas of interest with regard to technology and communication access. You're going to see those in just a minute when I show you the website. The other thing I wanted to mention is we were really particularly excited that AIR was joining us for this particular project because they really have an expertise, a lot of experience in developing these kind of sites, the community of practice sites. And while you saw some of our team members, there are actually some additional team members, particularly on the AIR side, in the background doing some very fantastic work. And I would be remiss if I didn't mention that there is this other team that we work with at AIR and who have been really instrumental in developing the website. So what I'd like to do now is actually take you on a little walkthrough of our technology forum. So that's what we're calling this place where people can have discussions, and those discussions center around technology. So I'm going to ask Victoria if she would just tell me that she can see the website.
Linda, I cannot.
I
just see the slide.
Okay. So I'm going to pause just a minute and I'm going to stop sharing my screen and then share the website. So if everyone will give me 1 minute, I think that that will work. Victoria, can you see it now?
Yes, we can see it. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. So this is actually the ICAAT website. It is not yet live for folks to use. We're still doing some final checks on it, making sure everything works properly. All the pieces are in place that we need to have in place so that anyone who decides to participate has a really good experience from the get-go. As we mentioned, there are things that you'll be able to do on this website without joining us, but there are many more things that can be done by joining ICAAT. Once you join, you'll be able to simply log in with a username and a password. And now you can see that I am logged in because my other option here is to log out, but it gives you a sense of what you'll see. There are posts and a whole variety of things that you'll have access to. This is simply the home page, but there are other activities that will take place. We made a lot, or we discussed a lot about the community of practice. And so as you can see, there's a button here called Community, and it's a place where we have set up discussion groups. And you can see these are all technology topics that people can join in a discussion about. ASR and speech to text, communication access, diversity, equity, and inclusion, environments, acoustics and lighting, personal hearing devices, and a favorite of mine, wireless audio connectivity. So these are all groups that people can join and participate in discussions. I'm going to click on View Group. When that happens, you'll see a description of the group and the topics that are included in that group. And anyone who joins will be able to look at group content and actually search on or for particular items of content. We have different types of content. There are discussions that happen. I'll click on this one. And this is a discussion about assistive listening and Bluetooth, a very hot topic these days for anyone who's particularly interested in the issue of wireless audio connectivity. So we have this discussion starter and a means for people to add comments. In addition to having discussions, we have a place where people can provide resources. So you can add resources. I'm gonna just click on an example of a resource that we have, and that is a web page that talks about the latest in Bluetooth connectivity. So it gives you a little description of that information and a place to click on in order to go to and read more for yourself. In addition to that, there may be events that you or our group, our ICAAT team, would like to let people know about. An example of that is this event that happened actually now a couple of months ago called Enabling. It's a conference that occurs every year in Washington, DC, actually Arlington, Virginia, but close enough. And there was a discussion about Bluetooth audio sharing at that conference. And so some of these conferences may be of interest to folks, others might not. But one of the important things is to know that they're happening and to know the kinds of things that are being discussed. So that's what this allows us to do for this particular topic, wireless audio connectivity, to have discussions around this topic, to post resources that are relevant to the topic, and also to post events that are around this particular topic. And again, the community includes a whole variety of topics that can be discussed. This is just a sampling of the topics. We can add topics, and by we, I mean the ICAAT team. In addition, anybody who is a member can request a group to be started to have a discussion around a new topic or something that is, similar to a topic that's here, but maybe has a different focus from what the description is in the card. You can also see how many items are available for you to look through in any particular discussion group, the number of members, and when that group was last updated. So there's a lot of information. If you want to go straight to resources, you can do so by clicking the resource button. And you can look through resources. You can search by category, or you can just sort of peruse and see the various documents that we have. They might be blog posts, government documents, news releases, and other articles. Likewise, if you really want to just see any events that are upcoming, you can go to events and go to upcoming events, and you can see that in January, there is the Assistive Technology Industry Association Conference. This is an annual conference about all kinds of assistive technology. And of course, HLAA's convention is coming up in June. If you want to see some past events that happened, you can do that as well by taking a look there at those. The events don't need to only be conferences. They can be webinars like the one we're having right now. Going to go back to the home page and just mention that, of course, we have help section about, and if you want to go to the HLAA website, you're able to do that. And you will have an account if you become a member, so you can click on that as well. I'm going to stop sharing the website and go back to the PowerPoint. So I just give me 1 second and we'll do that. Okay. I'm going to be sharing my screen here again, and we'll take a look at the additional services that we have planned. So that walkthrough was meant to give you an idea about the community of practice, the way in which people can come together, have dialogue about and conversations about technology topics. You can exchange ideas, provide your opinions, and it's a safe place in which to do that. We have some additional services that we have planned. Victoria mentioned that there is a phase 2, and we plan on having that ready during this next year. That next phase involves what I mentioned before, user stories. It involves an industry marketplace and something that we've referred to as training, but I'll explain a little bit more about what that actually means. So in phase 2, I mentioned that we were going to have user stories. We feel that this is a really important component of the website. It will be available to someone, whether they join ICAAT or they just want to take a look at the website and get a sense of the offerings. And the user stories are real stories, and they are about real people and real needs that they have for communication access. And the concept behind the user stories is to provide explicit understanding of users, of the tasks that they're trying to accomplish, the environments that they're trying to accomplish those tasks in. And user stories are really a way to highlight the opportunities that industry might have and the unmet needs of consumers and their real world experiences. And we didn't just make up user stories. It's actually the case that user stories play an important role in universal design, and they're used by many tech developers. So creating user stories making them visible on the site is a way to sort of showcase that investing time and resources in making products and services accessible is worth it, because we're talking about real people who have real needs. And so anybody from industry can look through these, can search for particular topics, but so can consumers, really anyone who comes to the site. And consumers can contribute their own stories to those that we've developed as part of our development process. But we really hope that it will be a way for industry to gain an understanding of this community and to see the opportunities available to them. The next thing that we mentioned among services that we have planned in addition to user stories is something called an industry marketplace. One of the things that happens, and I will say that it's not really new for HLAA to be working with industry. In fact, they've been doing it for a while. But what we wanted to have was a more effective and efficient, easy to use process for both industry and consumers. And one way we thought that could be accomplished was through what we're calling a marketplace. We often are approached by industry asking for how do we reach out to consumers to participate in various aspects of product development, like testing products or reviewing product literature, doing market research, or even design research. So we've had these kinds of requests, and they see HLAA as a way to engage with consumers. And what we're hoping is that this marketplace will allow for a very easy way for industry to reach out to consumers to participate in some of these activities by being able to post these offerings, if you will, for testing, for research, so that consumers can participate in those. In addition to that, we also have consultation with hearing loss experts. So this would be a request that would go directly to HLAA staff in order to understand what kind of perhaps interest they have in reaching out to subject matter experts before perhaps interacting with consumers. But it really is one of the number one things that industry reaches out to HLAA to accomplish, and that is to have that interaction with consumers. And we want to have a way to make that easier for everyone to accomplish. The final aspect that I sort of refer to as training, because in some ways it is, but it's self-directed. And in self-directed training, you can explore topics, you can discover things and learn. And we see some areas that we feel we can provide information for industry to learn and understand, and we can provide some information that consumers hopefully will find valuable if in fact they choose to participate in any industry needs for research. So in terms of industry, we often find that they don't have a lot of understanding of the variety within the community of people with hearing loss or those who are deaf. And they don't have a real clear understanding of the kinds of technologies that they use, particularly personal hearing technologies. So we want to be able to provide some of that information. We also find frequently that they're not particularly familiar with how to provide communication access, or maybe even that they need to provide communication access if they want to interact with consumers with hearing loss. So we want to be able to provide some information about how do you provision that for people who need it. And then what are best practices for communication interaction? There are many times where I'm in meetings with people with hearing loss, and we have sort of this list of best practices for our meeting. And there are any number of these kinds of best practices, but they don't tend to be well known or maybe even well executed. And so what we're hoping to do is to provide some of that guidance that represents best practice in communication. On the consumer side, often there's not an understanding of product design. Certainly, I don't think I had I did not have a full understanding of product design when I was contemplating the idea of this project. But as I've been working on this, I've certainly gained much better understanding of it. And it's really made a difference in how I think about that research and design process and the participation of consumers in that process. Often consumers don't quite know what to expect with regard to being a product tester or, say, providing a product review, and may be hesitant to participate because they have that lack of familiarity with what's involved. And so we want to provide them with some information about those kind of things so they can be more informed in deciding to go ahead and perhaps do some of that testing that a company might want. The other thing is that there are often forms that you have to fill out when you are doing testing for a company, an NDA, a non-disclosure agreement, a consent form. And of course, there's your data is being collected, and it's important for consumers to understand what happens to their data. So understanding all of these things may also provide a level of comfort going into and deciding that they really do want to participate, or perhaps not. But hopefully they will. And then finally, how to request communication access. Sometimes people really want access, but they don't know the best way to go about it, or even perhaps how to make that request. And so they need some additional assistance and understanding and learning how to do that. So that's what our training is about. It's really self-training, and you can explore these topics from an industry or consumer perspective, discover things you might not know, and learn about them. Finally, as I mentioned, we're getting ready to actually launch the ICAAT website. It's coming soon. So the community of practice, the technology forum where you can have discussion groups, we're planning for a launch in early 2022. All those other services, the user stories, the marketplace, the training will follow that. There'll be two places where you can access the community, one through a web page on the HLAA site, which is on the left-hand side. There's a picture of that. Or you can go directly to the ICAAT webpage and access it there. And again, we're looking to launch the technology forum, the tech forum, in early 2022. And then those other pieces of the program, that phase 2, will follow. So that's our introduction preview of ICAAT and the website, and a bit about the program. I hope that you found it interesting, understandable for sure, but I know we have some questions in the Q&A box, and Victoria is going to address those. And Lisa and I and Victoria will answer.
Thank you, Linda. Yes, we do have quite a few questions, and thank you for submitting these questions. And if any pop up while we're going through the questions, please feel free to add more into the Q&A section down on your bottom toolbar. So the first question from Michelle Othon was, how many people voted in the poll that we did at the outset of the webinar? And the answer to that, Michelle, is 30 people. And if you recall, the results showed that most people were moderately satisfied with communication access. Okay, and then going to our next question from Rebecca Rosenthal is, Rebecca is asking, does mainstream consumer electronic companies include video platforms like Microsoft Teams, WebEx, etc.?
So I can answer that, and the answer is absolutely yes. And in fact, of course, that's I would call it a hot topic with the pandemic. It's actually spurred some access that and availability that we didn't have to things like automatic speech recognition, but there's certainly a way to go with that. So yes, that is a great example of mainstream consumer electronics products, services that actually everyone makes use of.
Thanks, Linda. The next question is from Carl Krasnar, and it says, he's asking, if industry includes hearing aid manufacturers and consumers includes individuals with hearing loss, you must have, out of necessity, I think, include audiologists and other hearing aid dispensers, since the hearing aid industry is reluctant to connect directly with users. Please discuss how you are including this issue in your strategy.
So thanks for the question, Carl. Certainly, you will recall that in terms of who can participate, we differentiated industry and consumer for a reason for this presentation, and that was because that's the title. That's what the INC and ICAAT stand for, industry and consumer. But you are absolutely spot on in terms of the necessity of including people like audiologists and hearing aid dispensers. As I indicated, we're not excluding anyone. Absolutely anyone can participate, and that may be audiologists, it may be hearing aid dispensers, it may be other people. I mentioned myself as an example of a researcher who would want to participate. So we definitely plan to make sure that we target in terms of outreach to organizations to let them know that this is an opportunity for example, their membership, in order to hopefully get them on board. You can't force anyone to join, but certainly if we have enough people and even consumers who maybe mention it to their audiologists, that perhaps they'll join in. Lisa, did you want to add anything?
No, I think you really covered it. I think okay. The other thing that people should be more aware of is that as time goes on, I'm hearing more that the hearing industries folks really do want to hear more from consumers directly. So the old model is changing. That doesn't mean it's all changed all at once, but we do want participation from actually researchers, anyone who wants to be part of what we're doing.
Thanks, Lisa. Okay, so we've got quite a few questions to get through, and if we don't get through all of these, we will certainly post all of, we will address each one and make them available for you after the webinar. The next question is from Herschel Jackson, which is, what does ICAAT hope to accomplish for the deaf and hard of hearing community nationwide? And I will make a first attempt at this, and I'm sure my colleagues are would like to weigh in as well. But really, I think that the end goal is providing a space where people in the deaf and hard of hearing community have direct access and input to the development of technologies that they use so that they can be more accessible to their needs. And that's really what it comes down to is this space is new. You know, as I mentioned early on in the presentation, we looked around and for something, you know, a parallel program or a parallel service that served the deaf and hard of hearing community, and we couldn't find one. So this is a new space, and you know, we want to just bring people together for improving accessibility of technologies that people with hearing loss need. So, Linda or Lisa, anything to add to that?
No, I think that's absolutely right. And nationwide, really, we're not limiting it to the US, even if there were people outside. Of course, we're operating in the English language, but because it's on the web, there's the ability for other kinds of participants who are in other places. But certainly, you're absolutely spot on in terms of the goal for this work.
Thanks, Linda. Okay, the next question is from Elaine Aiello, which is, if I attend a lecture in my community, how can I get captions of the lecture? And Eileen, I'm not exactly clear on Elaine, excuse me, clear on the question, if this is an advocacy question, or perhaps if you could maybe use the Q&A to sort of add some details to your question so we can best answer it, that would be great. So we'll leave that one open. The next question is from Larry Goldberg. Could I open a discussion that would ask the community what they think of the quality of captions on a website or app?
Hi, Larry. Yes, this is Linda. You absolutely could do that. You can do it through a discussion. You could even request from the site to have a group created that discussed caption quality in general, and then have discussions under that, resources that are posted. But certainly you can ask that question and have that discussion within the community, not a problem. I will mention that our discussion groups, we have all the ones we have up now are open. We do recognize that there are instances where there, maybe some places where we want to have a group that is by invitation, if you will. It's closed because of maybe a sensitive nature of a product that someone might be developing. So we have the ability to do that as well, but absolutely you could initiate that discussion if you joined ICAAT.
So I know we're close to the top of the hour and not going to be able to get through all of these questions, but I do want to address one that has come in from a couple of people, including Larry and Arlene and Neil, which is how will they know when we launch ICAAT in early 2022? And the answer is that we're planning a communication and dissemination outreach And so we will be employing several strategies as a part of that outreach. And a big one of those is working through HLAA, the channels that HLAA has, including the website, which the portal will be accessible from, and the HLAA social media. So when we launch ICAAT in early 2022, you will definitely, our hope is that you are saturated with messages letting you know that we are available and accessible, and what we welcome you joining and coming and visiting with us. So stay tuned.
Well, thank you so much to our panelists, Linda, Victoria, Lisa, and thank you to our CART reporter today, Lisa Johnston. We want to welcome you to any future HLA webinars. You can find the schedule at hearingloss.org. Thank you for coming today, and have a great holiday season.